So is the 2023 Rugby World Cup going to be won by the team with the best bench? That's what this video is about. Hola and welcome to Cancun in Mexico. My name's Mark. I'm a 58-year-old Kiwi living here in Cancun. I'm a full-time ultra-distance marathon runner, but I'm an absolute rugby fan, and that's why I started this channel. Now in today's video I'm going to talk about the benches, because I really believe that this is an area where it's going to be super important for the Rugby World Cup. So let's get into the video. Now when we talk about the benches in a rugby game these days, we talk about those group of players that typically come on in the last 20 to 30 minutes of the game, barring an injury of course. And that part of the game, as we have seen over the last number of years, has become more and more important in terms of the strategies that teams use to win a game. Now, if you look at a bench, you could say that the bench can be used in three different ways. The first one is when a team is dominating the game and they want to keep that momentum going. So they bring on the relative players that are going to keep that momentum of domination in that game going forward. And an example of that could be the All Blacks against the Wallabies last weekend, where they already had the game more or less won. They brought on their bench to continue that focus to dominate that particular game. The second reason that a bench is used is to maintain a lead in a game. So an example of that would be when a team is ahead with a significant number of points and they want to just maintain that for the rest of the game. And particularly we see this more in World Cup games where the teams just want to win, which is the most vital point, and not necessarily the number of points that they score. And then the third way that a bench is used is when a team is chasing a game. So they bring on the players from the bench that are going to inject a little bit of spice into the game. They might be forwards who are going to win a small ball, or they could be backs who are going to come into the game to score tries and to get more points for a team. So those are three ways that predominantly benches are used in a rugby game. And I think we're going to see a different strategy being used in the Rugby World Cup than what we've been seeing in the Rugby Championship competition, for example. In the Rugby Championship competition, I think a lot of the teams have used their bench to use different combinations and to work out who their key team is. During the World Cup, that's going to be very different, because we're going to see teams that are fully selected. There's not going to be so much need to understand what combinations are working the best, and teams are going to want to put on the best 23 players they can for every game, particularly of course in the knockout phase of the tournament. So I think we're going to see a different dynamic in the way that the benches are used during the Rugby World Cup. And those teams who are, let's say, more or less the favourites in the to get through to the knockout phase and to continue in the knockout phase are the ones that are going to make sure that in the next few warm-up games they've really got their bench players worked out. Now it's a really interesting dynamic going on at the moment, because you've got teams like New Zealand and perhaps South Africa that have got a good idea around their starting 15, although maybe New Zealand's a little bit more settled than maybe what South Africa is. And those teams will be looking at perhaps using different combinations in their bench for the next couple of warm-up games to see who they want to take into that World Cup squad. New Zealand's got a good opportunity this weekend against Australia, maybe to put some players onto that bench that are on the fringe, and to give them an opportunity to see whether they will continue through to the tournament. I think the All Blacks, in the case of the All Blacks, the run on 15's pretty much settled. I think we saw pretty close to that against Australia, perhaps with Sam Whitelock and Sam Cane coming back in. Those are the only difference we're going to see. But for other teams like Australia, for instance, they will be playing a lot of different combinations around, because they haven't really, first of all, settled on their run on 15. And I'm sure Eddie Jones wants to still give some other players an opportunity on the bench. So I think there's going to be a few more combinations going on there for these warm-up games. But then once the World Cup squads are announced, you're going to see a run on 15 and a 23 that are going to be consistently used throughout the Rugby World Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see. if benches are selected on those different strategies that I talked about, is a bench able to come on and maintain a game and keep a game flow going? Is a bench able to come on and chase a game and run down points on the scoreboard if they need to? And don't forget, kicking is also a very important part of that. We saw in the weekend the game between Argentina and South Africa, where Santiago Carreras had an off day with his kicking boot and there was no other option for Argentina. So maybe in a different scenario in the World Cup, they might have a backup kicker that can be brought on to do the job. Remember, every game in the World Cup is going to be critical, whether it be pool stage or whether it be knockout stage. So then we want to see teams also that have got the ability off the bench to dominate games and to go away from their opponents. And this is where the All Blacks do quite a good job in the first half of scoring typically a lot of points. And they ask the questions of their opposition whether they're able to come home and chase them down. And that's a strategy the All Blacks have been using for a number of years now. So I really believe that the benches of the teams are going to be very, very important in the Rugby World Cup. Of the second tier teams that are playing in the World Cup, I think we're going to see some lack of experience and playing opportunity at the highest level in world rugby. That's going to be a telling phase. But for the top teams who are able to bring on players and not lose any of their momentum, skill level or speed, I think that's going to be something that's going to be very obvious as we go through the World Cup campaign. So let me know about what you think about benches. Do you think the benches are going to be a significant component of this year's Rugby World Cup? I'd really like to hear from you. And tell me whether your country has a strategy at the moment around their bench. Are they using that strategy? And is your country got a particular bench that is still in a fluid state and still looking for those players? Interested to hear. I've got audience now from all over the world in different rugby nations, so I really like to hear your comments on this and tell me what you think your coach's strategies are around using the bench, and whether you think it's going to be a significant factor in this Rugby World Cup. Now, the New Zealand All Blacks, they also have a second meaning for the whole process around the bench. And this little gem was released just yesterday from New Zealand, and I thought I'd like to show this for all my international viewers about the other meaning of the bench in New Zealand and how it brings our community together.
Very special day for the All Blacks. 26 beautifully carved benches have been given to the community. We talk about I've got your back, right? And having your back means you've got someone behind you. The bench for me is significant as a place where you can share, a place where you can open up, a place where you can talk, a place where you can reflect.
I think the bench is such a special place for people to connect. I keep using that word because we're not meant to do life alone, and so we're here in Muriwai, and for me it's a place of healing. To be back here and give a bench for the community that's been hit so hard by the floods, I think it's just super special. As All Blacks, we always ask for the support of New Zealand, but what we've tried to do this year is, rather than asking for support, we're going to support everybody else, our regions. This is your beach as well.
For Manaki, that gift of giving, it's about giving without wanting anything back. And so that is what a bench is. A community, it's about sitting together, it's about sharing together, it's about taking on challenges together.
From a rugby coach perspective, it's all about the team. This concept of saying to our community, thanks, we know you're there to help us, and don't underestimate how much that means to us.
So there you go, there's another way that the New Zealanders use the bench to bring our community together and how important it is. And I think you can see in that video the brotherhood of New Zealand rugby and what it means to us and how deeply it is in our hearts. And I know a lot of nations have got that passion for the game of rugby, but we are a very small nation with a very small population, and we're all connected through that magnificent game of rugby union. So there we go. That's my short video today about the benches in the World Cup. I think it's going to be a significant component of this year's Rugby World Cup. Let me know what you think, and I'll look out for all your comments coming in. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget, I'm going to be here all the way through the Rugby World Cup, including the warm-up games that we're about to go into, and giving my preview and review of all of those games. So please stick around, and the way to do that, the best, is to hit that subscribe button. If you push also that bell notification, you'll be told every time I make a video, and you'll be notified about it. Okay, well, that's it for me today. Time to get back and enjoy the sunshine. Hope you all have a terrific day. Stay safe, stay well, and remember, enjoy your rugby. Bye for now.